Any kind of grape juice, canned grape juice, frozen grape juice, does it matter? Fresh grapes, yes, absolutely. See, that's the key. You can make wine out of any kind of grape, but you want to, when you make wine, you want to make good wine. In order to make good wine, you need to start with freshly picked grapes. You would never pick grapes on a Monday and make wine on a Tuesday. You pick grapes on a Monday morning, you make wine on a Monday morning. Okay? There we go. This one. You're right. The Okay. So wine is a drink made from the fermented juice of freshly picked grapes. Key, because what happens after we pick any kind of fruit? What happens to it? Is it any better as soon as we pick it? No, not necessarily. If it's perfectly ripe, which is what we want, then as soon as we pick it, it is going downhill. Slowly, but still, it's going downhill. But grapes are very particular because there's a lot of, in grape juice, it's 80% sugar and, 80% water and 20% sugar. And these grapes, once they've been picked, they start to, some of them can start to get some of the juice coming out. And what happens to fruit, fresh fruit, when it's exposed to the air? What happens to it? It oxidizes. Yeah, it starts to go bad. So we want to, oxygen is one of the biggest enemies of wine. From the time we pick the grapes until the time we open the bottle. So we need to protect the grapes and the wine from oxygen. Okay? So, fermented juice of freshly picked grape. But what is fermentation? Who can explain what is fermentation? It's on the board, but explain to me specifically what it is. Addition of yeast to?
Wine. The grape juice.
Grape juice, yeah, because you don't have wine yet. You've added yeast to the grape juice. What happens?
The sugar reacts and
Eats, yes. Everyone has reacts. I hear that the yeast reacts with the sugar. When in reality, yeast is alive. Yeast is a living thing, just like you eat. So what happens is the yeast, you put it into the grape juice, and basically it swims around, and it's hungry, and it loves to eat sugar. So if you can imagine the yeast swimming around, eating the sugar, and just like you and me, when we eat something, what do? What happens? We eat something, we eat it. Huh? We give off something. Yeast does the same thing. But what yeast does is let's just do my special equation. S is for what? Sugar. Y is for yeast equals alcohol. So when the yeast eats the sugar, it gives off alcohol. And it also gives off CO2 and a little bit of heat. Just like you. You give off CO2 too, right? Not during class. No CO2 during class. And then heat is generated. Because right now, our bodies are at 98.8 totally, or 37 degrees Celsius. We're creating energy. The food we eat converts into energy. So there's a little bit of heat that's created during fermentation as well. How many of you were good at chemistry in school? Anybody? Anybody good at chemistry? Hands up. Oh, you're not. That's why you're all in hospitality. It's true. I hated chemistry. Oh my God, it was my subject. In fact, whenever there was a chemistry class, there was a very good chance I was skipping with my buddies and we were in the park drinking beer. Maybe that's why I only deal with alcohol now. Maybe that's my problem. Is that it? So, but now I love chemistry because I can relate to it. It makes sense to me. So this is a chemical equation, so it's how it works. So we're going to go a little bit with chemistry. We're also going to do a little bit of biology, and we're going to do a little bit of economics. And it all has to do with wine. And again, all those subjects I hated. I didn't do very well. Now I hope, because it makes sense to me. So yes, natural process, yeast feeding on the sugars in the grapes, producing alcohol, CO2, and heat. So now let's look at how wine is made. Okay? With white wine, we start off with white grapes. Right? Can we make white wine out of, and in the business, as we are all in the business, as we say, we have white grapes and we have black grapes. Okay? We don't use the term red grapes. They're the red ones, but we call them black grapes. So in class we refer to them as white grapes and black grapes. So can we make white wine out of black grapes?
Yes.
How?
So we just don't let the vacuum process happen. Like, don't let the skin into release color.
Yeah, and for example, I always like to use this is not the reddest apple in the world. Grapes are just like this apple, right? It's red on the outside, but on the inside is white. All grapes. No matter what they are on the outside, they are all white, or the juice is clear on the inside. So we can make white wine from any grape. Can we make red wine from any grape? No, we need to use the skin. But we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go back to how wine is made. We start off with our white grapes or our black grapes. We put them in this nice little machine, and this machine removes the stalks, which is the thing that holds all the grapes together. Why don't we want that? Why don't we throw that in there as well? It does. If you've ever chewed on grape stalk, it has kind of a bitterness to it, right? So we have to be very careful that we don't have any of that bitterness in the wine. So we want to remove all of the stalks. We want just the grape berry. Now that we have the grape berry, it goes into the press. And that press, as you can see, is a cylinder. It's a long metal cylinder. And on the outside, there's lots of tiny little holes. And on the inside is a very large balloon. We fill it full of grapes, and then the balloon slowly gets inflated, and it presses the grapes against the side of the wall of the cylinder, and we get the juice coming out. And the reason we use a balloon instead of something more forceful is because we want to gently press the grape, so we're just getting the juice. What do you want to Why are we gently pressing? What are you trying to protect against? Taste. Taste. What kind of taste? How is the taste affected by pressing too hard?
It can get bitter.
Yes, it does get bitter, but what gives the bitterness?
The skin of the
No?
The
Stalks are gone.
seeds.
The pips or seeds, yes, that's the right term. Pips. They're very bitter. They have a lot of bitter oil in them. So if you press those too hard, then your wine's going to taste bitter. So we don't want the stalks, we don't want the seeds, we want just that juice. Okay? So now that we have our juice, we put it in our fermentation tank, which is here. We have our clear juice, all of the skins and seeds are separated, and we add our yeast. And our yeast wakes up, starts swimming around, eating the sugar, making alcohol, CO2, and a little bit of heat. Okay? And now we have wine. And once we have wine, we have the option of how we mature the wine, how we store it. Typically, there's two options, stainless steel and oak barrels. What do you think is the difference between stainless steel aging and oak barrel aging?
The stainless steel wine, you don't get the characteristics of the barrel.
Correct. Stainless steel, there's a very fancy word for it. Stainless steel is considered inert, meaning it doesn't give, doesn't take. It's just a container. So if you're making a wine, and again, this is where the winemaker comes in. It depends what kind of wine he wants to make. If he wants to make a very fruit-forward wine, just of the flavors of the grapes, he will use stainless steel. Then we're just focusing on the flavor of the grapes. And that's the first thing that the winemaker chooses in how he wants his wine to taste. It's the kind of grapes, because all grapes are different. There's thousands of grapes in the world. They all taste different, just like mangoes. Do all mangoes taste the same? No. Do you like organic mangoes? No, I do. I like all kind of mangoes. But no, they are different. And different grapes will make different wine. And we age it in stainless steel, we're going to focus on the flavor of the grape itself. If we add the wine into the barrel to age, how is it going to be different?
So would you taste it's going to react?
Yes, but what's happening with it? It's definitely going to change the way the wine, number one, looks, tastes, smells, and actually feels in your mouth. So if we use an oak barrel, we're going to get some of the flavoring of the wood, the oak. And there's a component in the wood called vanillin. And vanillin is a lot like vanilla. You all know what vanilla tastes like, yeah? I'm sure in pastry and baking you made that. Same thing, though, it gives a taste of vanilla. You can also add the spiciness to the wine. But it also makes the wine seem a little more full-bodied, which is kind of thicker density. We're going to talk about body later when we learn how to taste wine. And it will also make the color of the wine slightly darker, especially white wine. So it makes a big difference on how the flavor is going to be. But these oak barrels, for example, in India, they cost around 60,000 rupees. So they're not cheap. So if you're going to store your wine in a barrel for 6 months or a year, there's a dollar value, there's a rupee value associated with that. So the longer you age it in the barrel, typically it improves the wine. It adds more character to the wine. And in red wine, for example, it softens the tannins. And we'll talk about tannins in a moment. But they're expensive, so you have to then raise the price of your wine to be able to accommodate that. But all wine is it's nice having that balance of not so expensive, but the quality is there as well. So again, that's up to the winemaker. What kind of wine does he want to make? Who is his market? So we put it in the bottle, and we have white wine. So now, red wine, we start off with black grapes. And we do the stalks off as well. Again, we don't want the stalks, that's going to add a bitterness to the wine. We put everything in the fermentation tank. We have the skins and the juice and the pulp and the seeds, everything. So over here we were doing a consommé. Here we're doing a stew or a curry. So we leave everything in there and then we add our yeast. The yeast, again, same thing happens, swims around, eats the sugar, gives us CO2, alcohol, creates a little bit of heat. But now that we have the skin, something is different about the wine. It's giving something up. What are the components that skins give us to the wine? Color. Color is one, yeah. Sorry? Tannins. Mm-hmm. What else? One more thing. That's on the outside of the skin. I'm talking about the physical components of the skin itself. So what does it do to the wine? It makes the wine more richer. It's more flavorful. It adds flavors and complexity to the wine. So not only do we get the color, we get and the tannin, we also get additional flavors. So red wines, because of this, are more intense and complex than wine just made with the juice, typically. But let's talk about tannin for a while. What does tannin do? Tannin is quite special. What is, again, the chemical property of tannin? Chemistry class. What is the chemical properties of tannin? You're right, it does have an astringency to the wine, and we're going to learn what that feels like. but that's not the chemical property that it possesses. What is the chemical property that it possesses? Bitterness is a flavor, it's not a chemical property. What is the fancy chemistry class? We're in chemistry class, remember? We need fancy long words. What is the enemy of wine?
Oxygen.
Tannin is a antioxidant. It protects against oxygen, so it allows the wine to age. So red wine can age because of this. Something else has antioxidants. It is lemon or lime. The citric acid is an antioxidant. So what I'm going to do with half of this apple, I'm going to put lemon juice over it. And if you've made fruit salad, have you made fruit salad yet in cooking class? We add the lemon juice so it doesn't oxidize, doesn't turn brown. Keeps the fruit tasty. It looks white and it doesn't turn brown. So tannin does the same thing. It's protecting the wine against oxidation. I'm getting gracious. Okay, so once we have fermentation complete, and again, in both these cases, there's two options as far as the yeast, adding the yeast. Some people use the natural yeast, as someone had mentioned, that occurs on the grapes. They just let nature take care, throw all the grapes in, and hopefully there's enough yeast everywhere to be able to do that. But most wine is made with the addition of yeast. They use specific, because there's thousands of kinds of yeast. And each yeast is actually going to make the wine taste slightly different and make the fermentation be slightly different. So most of the time it is a chosen yeast. But there was one winery that we met when we went on our wine tour that they actually found what was the naturally occurring yeast. They actually did a DNA test on it to find out specifically what was the DNA, what kind of yeast did they naturally occur in their vineyards that they've been using for a long, long, long time. And then they took that yeast and they multiplied it and they made it. So they made more and more and more of this naturally occurring yeast. But then they knew the volumes of the yeast they had so they could better control their fermentation. This was in Italy, this was in Tuscany. So then once we have our wine, we press it. Again, same thing, very gently, remove the skins, the seeds, and we now can mature it, either in stainless steel or in barrel. But if we age red wine in barrel, that stringency or that roughness of the tannin in the skins becomes softer. The longer we age it in the barrel, the softer the wine will come. Okay, now what about rosé wine? How is a rosé wine made? Slightly different. What color is a rosé wine?
Pink.
Pink. So, how is it made?
The skin is not left for long. It's just
Yeah, you just leave the skins for a little bit. And again, it depends on what kind of rosé you want. If you want a very pale pink, you leave the skins just for a little bit. If you want a deep pink, then you leave the skins for longer. But if you continue to leave the skins, you end up with red wine. Yeah. So those are the three methods. So white wine, white grapes, sometimes black grapes. We press, then we ferment, then we mature, then we bottle, and we have white wine. Red and rosé, black grapes, ferment first, then we press, separating the skins, then we mature, then we bottle, and then we have reds and rosés. Another way to make rosé we'll talk about is mixing red and white wine together. You make red wine, you make white wine, you mix them together, you have a rosé. So with white wines, it's made from the juice of the white grapes, sometimes for black grapes by removing the skins before fermentation. White wines are just lighter and more refreshing than red wines. They tend to be higher in acidity, and they don't age as well as reds. And when we use the term acidity in wine, it almost sounds like a negative term, doesn't it? Like this wine has acid. Ooh, acid. Don't like it. when you hear the word acidity, I want you to think not of acid, but I want you to think of crispness, refreshingness of the wine. And we do our experiment with our grapes that are in front of you, you're going to learn that. And again, the little plates of grapes and stuff are not snacks. Okay? So it's not stuff to eat while we're doing the glass. We're actually going to do something specific with them. So don't be chewing on that stuff. And white wines can be dry, or sweet, or in rosé wines made from black grapes with less contact with the skins than red wine. They're not as full-bodied as red, but they're more full-bodied than white wines. Rosé wines tend to be more seasonal, and they're consumed during the summertime typically. I like to call them picnic wine. A rosé wine is a wine that's for a picnic, you have some snacks, you have a rosé wine. They're not really that complex, and they're definitely not made for aging, and they're never really super expensive. But rosé wines are never like amazing, or are they expensive? They're just simple, easy drinking, fun, fresh, and friendly. Okay? And then, as I said, you can make a rosé by mixing red wine and white wine together. Red wine's color is coming from the skins. The juice is fermented in contact with the skins. And with the skins also comes those tannins, which the wine can give the aging potential because it's that antioxidant. And red wines are just more complex and intense than white wines and rosés. So we can make a red wine, a white wine, and a rosé wine all from the same grape. It will look different, taste different, and it will physically feel different inside our mouths, just by the process of how we made it. Okay? We got it? Sure. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about France, and we're going to talk about the regions of Bordeaux and the regions of Burgundy. And if you see, this is the map, so you can see the different regions. This is Bordeaux, which is here, and this is Burgundy, which runs here. And if you look at the rest of France, I guess there's just cows and wheat. This is where the cheese comes from. But the wine growing regions are kind of specific in the on the map of France. But what is the one commonality, the one common thing that you see where these wine regions are?
The coastal areas.
Yeah, some of them are on the coast. Or if you look, there's a lot of bodies of water that affect wine. Wine regions and bodies of water, they actually go very well together. And we'll learn about that when we talk about terroir. So here, these along the coast, because this is in the south of France, and it can get quite hot in the south of France. So here, by having the breezes coming in off the Mediterranean, it cools down the vineyard. Because grapes like warmth, but they don't like too much heat. If it gets too hot, then you don't get very nice wine. And then here in Burgundy, there's some rivers, and in the Loire, there's a river that goes through it, and there's a very large river that runs through Bordeaux, sorry. So let's talk about Bordeaux first. There are thousands of grape varieties in the world, but two of the most famous black grapes are the grapes coming from Bordeaux, that Bordeaux is famous for. We have Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And again, just like mangoes, they taste different. Cabernet gives more dark fruit of cassis and black currant, and it has higher levels of tannin because the grapes are smaller. Grapes are smaller, the skin ratio is different. Where Merlot, bigger grape, thinner skin, more rich fruit, blackberry, and less tannin. Right? White wine, we have Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. Those are the two main white grapes in Bordeaux. And 80–90% of all of the plantings are for red wine. And about 10% is for white wine. So let's say we got a friend of ours, calls us up and he says, "Hey bro, I just got back from Paris and I brought you a bottle of Bordeaux wine. We have a pretty good idea that it is what color? Most of the wine coming from Bordeaux is what?
Red.
Red. And it's going to be containing what grapes? Cabernet Merlot. And again, Cabernet Merlot are the most planted black grapes in the world. The reason is people really like the way they taste. They're very pop, and they grow well. And in Bordeaux, they never say Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot on the label. They'll just say Bordeaux, or suburbs of Bordeaux. We now know that a Bordeaux wine is going to contain the grapes of Cabernet and Merlot. Okay. So here's a close-up of Bordeaux. This is the River Gironde, goes here. And we have on the right side of the river, the right bank. And on the left side, we have the left bank. And different grapes grow better in the different regions because of the terroir. Terroir is different. So different grapes like different terroir. So who can tell me what is terroir? Wait. So what? Geographic or geography. And this is slope, flat, rolling. It is near a big lake or is a river nearby. And these always affect. A nice definition for the word terroir is a sense of place. Every place in the world, every little valley, every little field, every little area in the world is going to be slightly different because the terroir is different. Number one, the geography is different. What's the other component that's different? Soil or geology. And that is the components of the soil. Some soil is sandy, some has stone, some has clay. They're all different. And these will all affect the way the wine will taste. Because again, the root system of the vines is pulling up the nutrients from the soil. And you're getting those nutrients into the grape juice. And what else? Climate, yeah. Water is under geography. Okay? So we have geography, geology, and climate. And the fourth aspect of terroir then is what we call genetics. And that is the kind of grape that we use. So by having a different grape in a hot, let's say we have a Chardonnay in a hot climate with sandy soil on a slope, it's going to taste different than a Chardonnay in a cool climate with clay soil on the flat. And everywhere in the world, all of these combinations are going to be slightly different. So the wines will be slightly different. Okay, so that is the terroir. So now, on the right bank, the Merlot grape is very, very happy there because the terroir is slightly different on this side. And it's very conducive for Merlot to grow. On the left bank, there is more Cabernet Sauvignon planted because Cabernet Sauvignon likes it there. And if you see over here, these are all the sub-regions of Bordeaux. We have Saint-Estèphe, Pauillac, Margaux, and over here we have Pomerol, Saint-Emilion, and Fronsac. If you see on the label, it says Bordeaux, we know the grapes come from anywhere in this region, and they're a mix of Cabernet and Merlot. But if you see in here on the label, it says Pomerol. All of the grapes that were used to make that wine are all coming from that little region of Pomerol. And there's going to be a much higher percentage of Merlot in that wine. And again, Margaux and Pauillac, a higher percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon, because that's what grape grows there better. Okay? And they will taste different. So some people say, oh, I only drink right bank wines. That's the only wines I drink. And that means that they like Merlot. They like the flavors of Merlot. Okay? Got it. So in addition to where the grape variety that is going to be in it, we know from Bordeaux it's going to be Cabernet Merlot. If it's Fronsac, it's going to be high percentages of Merlot. We can also look on the label and see label terms in regard to quality. Because we can't drink every bottle of wine in Bordeaux to find out whether it's good, bad, or ugly, but we can look at the label, and the label will tell us a lot about the quality of the wine. So we have 4 different categories for Bordeaux. We have Bordeaux AC, we have Bordeaux Superior, and we have Cru Bourgeois. And the very, very best is Grand Cru class. So we're going to shift to economics, and we're going to look at a pyramid chart. And in the pyramid chart, what happens when we go up the pyramid in regards to quality? It gets higher. What about quantity? Less. So down here we have our Bordeaux AC. And then we have Bordeaux Superior, Cru Bourgeois, and then Grand Cru Class. And it says right on the label, you can see right here, Appellation Bordeaux Contrôlé, right on the label. So when you see Appellation Bordeaux AC, the wine come from anywhere in that region, primarily Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and it has alcohol levels between 10 and 13%. Bordeaux Superior, again, right on the label, higher levels of alcohol than Bordeaux AC, 12 months of age before they sell it, and it's produced from older vines. All of these make the wine slightly better. Why? Why would a higher level of alcohol make the wine better? Because we can get high faster? Is that why? Is that how we judge the quality of the wine? Woohoo! Really high, really fast.
Taste and fracturization.
No, but why would more alcohol technically maybe mean the wine slightly better?
Because it's sweet, the grapes more sweet.
It's grapes more.
The grapes more sweet. Because again, look at our equation. This is an equal sign, okay? You can't make unlimited amounts of alcohol from a little bit of sugar. Sugar equals alcohol. So to have more alcohol, you needed to have more sugar. And a grape that has more sugar is a grape that is more good quality, or the grape is more, it is, but it is also more
Acidic.
It's less acidic actually. Ripe. Okay? It's more ripe. Because when a grape ripens, the sugar levels increase. Where did the sugar come from? This is the interesting aspect, especially terroir. Where does the sugar come from? Where does the plant make sugar? Hmm? Where does the grapevine make sugar? Biology class. We're going to biology class now, okay? You guys keeping up? Biology class. Where is the sugar made?
It's there inside the grape.
By the process
So by the process of photosynthesis.
Yes. And where does that occur?
On the leaves.
The leaf. Yeah. The grape is just a storage tank. Okay? It's just where they store the sugar. All of it happens in the leaf. And it's the chlorophyll that's there. It's the sunlight. Sunlight hits the chlorophyll. And that's the energy. So all wine is sunlight in the glass. The leaf, sunlight, a little bit of water, and nutrient coming from the soil makes sugar. Sugar then is transported through the plant, stored in the grape. So a grape higher in sugar is also a grape that is more ripe, because not only does the sugar increase, what else increases in the grape, do you think? Sugar gets more?
The water? My favorite.
Flavor, yeah. Because there's more of the things that make grapes taste like grapes. And wine tastes of grape. So if you have a really thin, uninteresting grape, you're going to have a very thin, uninteresting wine. So as a grape ripens, it gets more flavorful. Just like mangoes. You know, like mango season's just starting, and you go to the market and there's only a few varieties there, and they're kind of green and they're not so nice, but you haven't had a mango in so long, and you take it, cut it over, bite. It's a little bit sweet, but it's not like super, super sweet, and it's also a little thin in flavor, right? Because it's not, so you get a little more patient, and you wait a couple of weeks, you go back to the market. Now we're getting these really ripe mangoes. Take them, cut them in half, bite it, and then you've got this really rich sweetness and this rich mango-y flavor, okay? Because they were ripe. Grapes, the same way. So, higher level of alcohol is giving us just more sugar and more flavors. 12 months of aging before it's sold. Why would wine maybe be better after 12 months?
So because of its maturation, the wine.
Well, as something ages and matures, it's right. It basically, but just all you really need to know is it just does. It allows all of the flavors of the grapes that were in the all the flavors that were in the grapes to come together and mellow and harmonize, and also the tannins get a little softer, so the wine is not as astringent, especially if it's a red wine, and produced from older vines. Why would an older vine give you a better wine?
They're sweet.
You can have the same amount of sugar in a young wine, young vine. See, this is the grapevines, and most when we see them above the ground like this, they kind of look about the same. This one is 5 years old. This one is 25 years old. The 25-year-old will make better wine. Why?
They are over.
No, not
No, we are supposed to pick them on the very.
all grapes. You can wait until they ripen, but young vines will have ripe grapes just as much as old vines will. Slightly different, but what is the component of an older vine you think that gives it a...
It takes more nutrients from the soil.
How? You're right, it's getting more nutrients from the soil. Why would an older vine get more nutrient than a younger vine? Practice. So it kind of, but it's this 25-year-old vine has a huge root system. Okay? On the top, they kind of keep them the same size because you want it to be pick the grapes. You want them to grow, not like they grow like a big tree, they grow like 50 feet up. They grow the same size, but in the ground, they have extensive root systems that are able to get the water and the nutrient, even in a very, very dry summer. So there's not much water in the summertime. And again, remember the plant needs that water to be able to do photosynthesis. These older vines have extensive root systems that go really deep, and that's where the water is. Deep, deep down when it's dry. So they get that, and then you get better quality grapes, which give you better quality wine. Okay.
And I'll get to.
So these styles of wine. Okay.
One second. No?
So the style of Bordeaux wine, for red wine, it's Merlot and Cabernet blends. These tend to be inexpensive, best consumed young. Some will age, but most are meant to be consumed young. These are medium bodied, medium tannin and acidity, and they have red fruit character. White wines, blends of Sauvignon and Semillon, inexpensive. Dry white wines have medium to high acidity, medium full body, and they're best consumed young. So both Bordeaux and Bordeaux AC wines are actually just kind of okay, average wines. What makes Bordeaux famous is not the Bordeaux AC and the Bordeaux Superior ones. We start to get famous once we get into the category of Cru Bourgeois, which is up here. And Cru Bourgeois is higher than the other two, but not quite as high as Grand Cru Classe. But these can be very good. So if our buddy comes and he's got a Cru Bourgeois, then we go, wow, now we're talking about some seriously nice wine. And the price is going to be higher, but actually Cru Bourgeois is not as expensive as Grand Cru Classe. Because if it says Grand Cru Classe on the label, everyone knows it's good. So they can command a higher price. Cru Bourgeois, we can sometimes get some nice value wines. So these can age now. These will age, mature. They're medium to full body. They have higher levels of tannin. As I said, can be very good value, but they're just more balanced, more interesting. The white wines are blends of Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon, mostly dry, medium to high acidity, but just more complexity in the fruits, flavors, and aromas, and we're getting honey toasted flavors. We're now starting to see some really good quality sweet wines in this category. And then we have a Grand Cru Classe. It says right on the label, and it's Grand Cru Classe, or you can also say Grand Cru Classé, whatever you want to say. These are the very best wines. They can age for a long time, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and they're amazing, amazing wine. But only if they're coming from a good vintage. What does it mean when I say good vintage?
Year of harvest.
Year of harvest, yeah. Part of that terroir is the climate, and the climate is often different. Some summer, if it's very cool and rainy, the grapes aren't getting all that sunlight, so they're not able to produce all the sugar, and they're also not able to get the grapes to taste more of the things that makes grapes taste like grapes. So vintage is very important, especially in places like Bordeaux, because there can be a huge quality difference between, for example, 1981 was a really bad year, very cloudy, very wet. 82, perfect year, long autumn, very warm and dry. The grapes got matured, beautiful flavors, high levels of sugar, fantastic wine. But these wines now have some very unique flavors that you're only getting in Bordeaux, which is oak flavor, cigar box. Have you ever smelled a cigar box? It's cedar and tobacco. And then, again, these can age for a long time. White wines can age a little bit now as well. They get these honey, toasty, complex flavors in the bottle. Medium to high acidity, more full body, and some of the best sweet wines are coming from a region of Sauternes, which is in the south of Bordeaux. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to give you a better way to understand the difference between something that you can relate to, because I know wines is something new, but you're all familiar with dating and stuff, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Interacting with people. So I always like to call Bordeaux AC the first date wine. Okay? Let's say you met someone probably at school, because that's the only time you have. You met them and maybe you've been having coffee and maybe snacks, lunch and stuff like that, but you decided you want to go on a date. Okay, you're dressed up, you go to a restaurant, so you go to the wine list and you look at Bordeaux AC. It's a nice wine. It marks the fact that it was a first date, but it's not too expensive. Because maybe, I don't know about you, maybe you got a first date, maybe you have 3 first dates all week. You know, you got one on Monday, you got one on Friday, you got one on Saturday. So you don't want to spend all your money. So you wouldn't do that.
Sorry. And what would you recommend for your fiance?
Well, we'll get to that. So, Bordeaux AC, first date. Bordeaux Superior, 1 year of dating. Okay? Go to a slightly better restaurant. The wine list, Bordeaux Superior. And guys, you don't have to worry when it's a year. You know why? You know why you don't have to remember it? Because the girl will remember and they will remind you. Because if you don't know it yet, guys, girls are much, much smarter than you. Okay? And they never, ever forget anything. Especially the bad stuff you do. Okay? So they're going to give you some notice. Like a week before it's a year, they're going to go, hey, honey, in 1 week it's going to be a year we're together. And you're going to go, a year? Wow, seems like longer. And then one day you're going to get a little SMS, hey, 1 day, 1 year, happy days, happy days, happy days, okay? So don't worry about it, guys. Go to the restaurants, Bordeaux Superior. Cru Bourgeois, this is 5 years of marriage. Okay? You go to the best restaurant in town, go to the wine list, Cru Bourgeois. Grand Cru Glace, 25 years of marriage. Or the first year with your second one. If you're ready, she's the trophy wife, all that stuff. No, we're gonna stick to 25 years of marriage, because you're only gonna marry once. You get on a plane. You fly to Paris. You go to a Michelin star restaurant. You go sit down, the sommelier comes over, and you go, oh, it's our 25th wedding anniversary. And he's going to go, ooh la la, monsieur, c'est très bon, c'est très bon, très bon. I'm going to get you a fantastic Grand Cru class to celebrate. Okay? But make sure you bring your Platinum American Express card, because this is going to cost you about a lakh. Dinner and the wine. So, 25 years of marriage. So now you understand the difference between Bordeaux AC, Superior, Cru Bourgeois, and Grand Cru Class. First date, 1 year of dating, 5 years of marriage, 25 years. Got it? Understand?
Yes, sir.
Good. So we'll see. If our friend comes and he brings us a Grand Cru Class, then ooh, we like this guy or girl.
So you skip the fiance part?
Well, that's fiance, you would get a good Bordeaux Superior.
Bordeaux Superior.
A good one.
A good one.
Depends. I don't know. Depends how much money you got. Okay, another label term you'll see is Grand Vin. Actually, for the fiance, you're celebrating something, he would have some champagne. Yeah. Grand Vin, again, you'll see it right on the label, Grand Vin de Bordeaux. This is meaning this is the best wine that the chateau makes, or winery. If, for example, if Sula was in France, it would be Chateau Sula. Chateau just means the winery name. So, best wine of the chateau is not a guarantee of quality, because if the winery doesn't make any good wine, it just means it's the least bad. And it's not regulated by the government. It just means it's the best wine the chateau makes. And why would a chateau make different kinds of wine, quality levels?
So that we could grade wines.
Sorry?
So that we could grade wines, different kind of wines, different shapes.
Yeah, well, there's different grades. Why? Why don't they just make one kind of wine?
Different market. Because for all kind of people, different market.
Economic class again, okay? They want to make money. You know, they want to be able to sell you your first date wine. They want to sell you your 5-year wedding anniversary, and if they're really good winemakers, then they can sell you the 25th. It's economics. It's like BMW makes a 1, a 3, a 5, 6, and a 7, because they want to sell lots of cars to everybody. Wineries are the same thing. So, where does this all come from? We know why we have it, because we can understand quality issues better. But the history is important to understand. And I never used to teach this. It's the because it all originated with the 1855 classification of Bordeaux. And I didn't teach it because I thought it was too advanced for you in your career days, but one of the third-year students a couple of years ago was coming from his third-year placement interview with a very good hotel chain. I think it was either Taj or Oberoi. And I said, oh, did they ask you any questions about wine? And they said, yes, they did. And I go, oh, cool, what? And they said, they asked, explain to us the 1855 classification system of Bordeaux. And I went, oh, crap. So I didn't teach it. No one taught it. So if they ask the question once, there's a good chance they'll ask it again. So pay attention for the next 2 minutes. And maybe it's the difference between working for Domino's Pizza and working for Oberoi or Taj. So 1855 obviously is what? The year. Yeah. And it was in 1855, and it was created around the Exposition Universelle de Paris, which was basically a big World's Fair held in Paris. And they were celebrating all of the great things that France had done. There was a pavilion just for the different kinds of French cheeses they made. There was one for fashion and clothing and fabrics, textiles that they made. They had one for technology and inventions that they had done. And then they had one for wine. And at the time, Emperor Napoleon III, he wanted to be able to make it more clear for the people that came how they could understand the different quality levels of the Bordeaux wine. So he went to the brokers in the industry. And a broker is someone that buys wine from the winery, sells it to the end merchant, whether it's a restaurant or a private individual. And back then, the merchants knew which were the best wines because they were the most expensive. Back then, quality was directly related to price. Today, there's one other component that affects price. Economics again. What is it? It's not just quality, it is supply and demand. Higher demand, lower supply, higher the price. That is why these Bordeaux wines are the most expensive wines in the world. Because the really good ones, the Grand Cru class, again, it's not the Superior or the Bordeaux stuff, it's the Grand Cru class that are selling for up to, just from the vineyard, fresh made, a few years old, a lakh. And it is because of demand from one country. One country has increased the price of Bordeaux wines in the last 20 years by 500%. Which country is it? Nope. U.S. demand for Bordeaux is consistent. Is it India? No, not yet. Potentially down the road, because India has a lot of what? People. What's another country that has a lot of people? China, yes. China, there's this new wealthy class being created that wasn't there 20 years ago, and they're making lots and lots of money, millionaires and billionaires, and they want to celebrate the success. And for them, celebrating success is having the best of things, whether it's a Rolls Royce, which is the best car, or Bordeaux wine, which is they consider the best wine. So it's this demand that has increased the price of wines to a level a lot of people think, you know, it's a nice, fantastic wine, these Bordeaux wines, they're Grand Cru class, but I don't think they're worth that much. So that's why it's different. But back then, highest price was the best quality. So they created a system of 5 tiers. 5th growth, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st growth. So we take this top Grand Cru class and we divide it again into 5 categories. 5th growth, lowest. 1st growth, highest. And there is only 5. 5 wineries or 5 chateaux that have the 1st growth status. They are Chateau Lafite, Rothschild, Chateau Latour, Chateau Margaux, Chateau Aubryon and Chateau Mouton Rothschild. And these wines, boys and girls, are not 25th wedding anniversary for you and me. These are 25th wedding anniversary for Bollywood star, cricket players. These are seriously good, but super expensive. These are the ones that start at 1 lakh. And you can pay up to 1 crore for 1 bottle of a very, very old first growth from a very, very good vintage. Okay? So, we understand Bordeaux? And again, there's a lot of wine being made in Bordeaux, but most of it is here. Just kind of so-so. But that so-so wine is a little bit more expensive than similar wine around the world of similar quality because of the name, Bordeaux. And it's all being driven by this upper level. That's raising the brand of Bordeaux. So there's a lot of better quality wines you can get at the same price, but it's all about supply and demand. Now we're going to talk about Burgundy. And Burgundy, see the river here? And then why would river be important?
For the soil of the water supply.
Fertility of the soil.
Yes.
For grapes.
A little bit, but again, grapes are actually kind of funny. They actually don't like a lot of water. They need very little. In fact, they prefer less. They prefer to struggle to get water. If they struggle, they actually produce better grapes. But
The climate also changes.
climate does change. Yeah, if it's by a river, there's going to be a little bit maybe cooler, maybe a breeze because the water's moving. But what happens, typically when you see a river, what's happening on either side of the river? Geography-wise.
The soil.
Geography, not geology. Geography. The rivers here, typically there's a what on this side and a what on this side. Slopes. Yeah, because this river's been cutting its way through this for millions of years. It's been cutting. So whenever you see these slopes, you have better, whenever you have a slope, it's typically better for the grapes. Because of two things. What are they?
The water is
Water. Yeah, again, remember they don't like all water. So when it rains, the water goes away. If it's flat and it rains, where does the water go?
It's going to stay close to
It stays right there. Kolkata, when it rains, what happens? It goes up. So what do we look at this? Kolkata is not a good place to grow grapes. Too wet. Slopes, better. Also slope, especially a slope that is facing the sun, it's going to get all day sun. Morning sun, midday, afternoon sun. Because again, sun is the key component, right? The sun gives us the energy, sure, that makes the grapes. So, and if you notice, like Bordeaux kind of all together, Burgundy's a little bit separate. There's Chablis at the top, Côte de Beaune, Côte Chardonnay, and then Macon. And the terroir is different in each and every one of these regions. But the thing that stays the same in Burgundy is the grape varieties. And in Bordeaux they blend reds and whites, but in Burgundy they have 100% one kind of grape for white wines and 100% for red. And those grapes are Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And because the terroir is different, the grapes like are different. For example, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir do not grow in Bordeaux. And Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot do not grow typically in Burgundy. Because it's cooler in Burgundy. It's a much cooler climate. And Chardonnay, and especially Pinot Noir, likes a cooler climate. So they have their same classification system. It is also divided into 4 categories. And they are roughly the same in quality as far as first date and 25-year wedding anniversary. But in Burgundy, we have Bourgogne, AC, Bourgogne, AC. And Bourgogne is the French word for Burgundy. Bourgogne means Burgundy. Their superior is actually, they start to use the name of the villages. We'll go back to that in a moment. And then they have Premier Cru. And they have Grande Cru. And again, it's going to be right on the label. If we go back to our map, we see Puy-Foussé, Mâcon, Chasseau, Montrachet, Meursault, Palmar, Couvray-Chambertin, and Chablis. These are the names of the villages. So regular first date wine is just labeled Bourgogne AC. Next quality level is, they would say Chablis on the label, or they would say Mâcon on the label. And the next quality level, the Premier Cru, it would be Chablis Premier Cru, or Chablis Grand Cru. And if it's a white wine, it is always going to be what grape? Chardonnay. So if in your campus interviews, they say, can you recommend a French Chardonnay for a customer celebrating the 25th wedding anniversary? You would go, absolutely, monsieur, I would recommend the Montrachet Grand Cru. So all of these are Chardonnay-based wines or Pinot Noir-based wines, and they will only say on the label Bourgogne, AC, Chablis, Puy Montrachet, Meursault, Montrachet Grand Cru, Mâcon, Puy-Foussé. Chardonnay, 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 Chardonnay. Pinot Noir, Bourgogne, AC, Couvray-Chambertin, Bon, Chambertin Grand Cru, all Pinot Noir. And they make a lot less wine in Burgundy than they make in Bordeaux. And China has now moved on. Burgundy has become very popular now. And because there is even less production in Burgundy, the prices are going even higher than the ones in Bordeaux. Okay. How wine is made. A little bit about France, Bordeaux, Burgundy. Now we're going to learn how to taste wine. Who thinks that wine tasting is difficult? Very difficult to be a wine taster. Hands up.
Taste buds. Sensitive taste buds.
It can be, but typically, wine tasting is actually not that difficult because you don't have to like grow a new arm or a new ear or a new nose. You use all of the components that you have now. In fact, what you do when you taste wine, you've already done today, probably a couple times. Okay? When we taste wine, we're going to look, smell, taste, and conclude. You did that already, I'm sure. Maybe you had breakfast, you looked at the plate, and maybe it was eggs. And maybe they're a little runny, which in your mind says, maybe they weren't quite cooked. Or they were burnt, brown or black around the edges. And then when you could smell it, and if there was a burnt smell, then you know that the eggs are maybe not cooked so well. Then you tasted it, that confirmed your initial impression by looking and smelling, and you made the conclusion that this restaurant sucks, and I'm not coming back here again. Or it was an omelet, and it was beautiful, it was fantastic, I really liked it. I'm going to come back again. Same thing in wine tasting. Okay? But we're going to look for certain things, and we're going to look for certain smells, and we want to look for certain tastes as well. So in wine tasting, there's a lot of terms that we use. Acidity is one, remember we talked about. Tannin is another. Sweetness and body. So we're going to learn all of those things, what they really mean, before we go on to tasting the wine. And now that's why we have our little snacks. So if you open up your little plate that has the grapes, you're going to find a peeled grape. You're going to find the skin of a grape. Then you're going to find a complete grape with the skin and flesh together. Okay? So unwrap your little presents. And I want you to take out first the peeled grape. Just the flesh, no skin. Okay, so don't take it, don't eat it yet, but just hang on to it. Just get it out. Everyone get it out and ready. There should be two. If there's two, we can cut it down. Does everyone have two? Yeah. Got it? Uh-huh. So I want you to take it. Put it in your mouth and chew on it, okay? Take the flesh. Okay, we got it? Take the flesh, don't get the seed, take the seeds out. Because that's how you got the bitter roll. Take the flesh, put it in your mouth, chew on it. Okay, everyone chewing on the grape? Do you get the sweetness? Again, that's the tip of your tongue. The tip of your tongue is where the sensors are for sweetness. Everyone understands sweetness. Everyone, I don't have to explain sweetness to you. But are you getting the mouth watering effect going on now? Is your mouth watering? That's caused by the acidity in the grape juice. Okay? So when you're tasting wine, and it is sweet, that means the wine has high levels of sugar. Easy for you to understand. But acidity, so if you get a lot of this sort of mouth-watering effect, that means the wine is high in acidity. Another way to gauge acidity is on the edges of your tongue. That's where your tongue senses acidity. It starts to tingle, get some sensation there. The wine is high in acidity. Now I want you to take the skin. Take the skin, divide it up between the two of you, and chew on the skin. Okay, skin, chew on it. Or just use your finger. Okay. Everybody, different experience. Okay. Is your mouth drying out? Your gums drying out? That's the effect of the tannin in this on your mouth. And what is happening is tannin actually likes to grab onto stuff. Okay? So the tannin is grabbing onto your saliva and it's taking it away from your mouth. So that's why your mouth dries out like that. And you get that astringency or the roughness there. Okay? That is what the tannin does. But as you age wine, that astringency becomes less. But you still have the protective antioxidants that are in the tannin. Okay? Everybody understands tannin? So wine that gives that effect to your mouth is higher in tannin. Now take the grape, the peeled grape. Or sorry, the whole grape. Skin on, everything together. Use the red one, don't use the white ones. The white ones are just kind of for decoration and snacks. Use the red grape. Because that's what we had before. So is it different than the separate parts? So when we had the flesh of the grape, our mouth was watering. That's the acidity that's in the wine. The sweetness on the tip of our tongue, that's the sugar that's in the grape juice. When we had the skin, our mouth dried out. That's the effect of the tannin. And when we had the whole grape, it was different from the separate parts. It wasn't as sweet. It wasn't as acidic. It wasn't as tannic. It was more balanced, right? And that's what a wine should be. Should be balanced. It should have balance of acidity and sweetness or fruitiness and tannin. It's a red one. Okay? The other term you're going to hear is body. Oh, it's a very full-bodied wine, or it's a light-bodied wine. What does that mean?
So the wine is more thick and the light one.
Yeah, it refers to the density of the wine. But a better way to understand it is, because you have to drink a lot of wine to be able to differentiate light body from full body. But everyone's had milk before, right? And skim milk feels different in your mouth, doesn't it, than say full milk from the cow or the cream. So the light-bodied wine has the same consistency in your mouth as skim milk. And a full-bodied wine has the same consistency in your mouth as full milk. And medium and middle. So you can understand it. So now we know acidity, tannin, sweetness, easy, and body. Okay. So I've given you some tools to help you with. You have the aroma wheel in front of you, and you have the tasting sheet. The tasting sheet is going to help organize your thoughts. It's going to help organize. I want you to fill these out. When we actually taste the wine, I want you to fill out your tasting sheet, put the name of the wine, all the information, and I want you to write down what you see, what you smell, what you taste, and your conclusion. So when we look at the wine, we want to analyze the color. And the color is it lemon, gold, or amber for white wine? Is it pink, salmon, or orange? For rosé and a red wine, is it ruby, garnet, purple, ruby, garnet, or tawny? And we're going to talk about what these colors mean in a moment. And then we also want to know the clarity of the wine. Is the wine clear, which means we only see wine? Or cloudy, which means there's something else floating around inside it. Okay? There's something else floating around inside your wine, and the wine has gone bad. Two things typically affect quality of wine, make it go bad. One is bacteria. The winemaking process wasn't used with very clean barrels, and it wasn't very clean presses, or the warehouse wasn't very clean, and the bacteria gets in the wine. And when bacteria gets in the wine, it starts to grow. It eats the wine, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets so big that we can actually now see it in the wine. The other is heat. Heat cooks the wine. And then we want to talk about the intensity of the color. Is it pale, medium, or deep? So is it a pale amber or a deep lemon? We want to get as specific as possible. And if you look at the colors, up at the top of the chart, we have pale yellow-green for white wine, and then it changes to yellow, yellow-gold, gold, old gold, yellow-brown, madderized, and then brown. In red wine, purple, ruby, red, brick, red, brown, and brown. And these are caused by the wine aging. So if we look at our apple now, this is the apple that had the antioxidant, the lemon juice. It is still white. The other apple is now brown, and that's caused by oxygen. Okay? This had tannin, antioxidant, keeps it fresh. But if we continue to keep this, it's going to slowly get brown as well, but not as fast as this. And that's what happened as the wine ages. And it is caused by just a little bit of oxygen in the bottle. Okay? At every bottle of wine has a little bit of air at the top, and oxygen in small amounts over a long period of time are fine. The wine stays okay. And for example, a old gold or yellow brown is something we could expect the color of a 15-year-old Montrachet from Burgundy. Because that little bit of oxygen is starting to change the color. But if we were tasting a bottle of 2015 Syrah, Sauvignon Blanc, and it was this yellow-brown color, what has happened? What's happened to the wine? Fade on that. Yeah, and it's typically caused by too much heat. Cooks the wine. And when you cook it, it changes the flavor, and it doesn't make it better, that's for sure. So cooked wine and wine that's been exposed to bacteria are false. And we can see them just in the color. So if we do a wine tasting and we pour it out and it's dark gold, we don't even have to taste it. We know the wine is bad if it's a young wine, 2014. But if it's a 2000, then we should expect to see that color. Okay? Smell. Now we're going to look at the condition of the wine. And the condition is referred to as clean, which is a nice, pleasant smell, or unclean. The wine smells unclean, or musty, or smells of old, wet, moldy newspapers or wet cardboard, the wine has gone bad. And it's caused by, actually the wine is referred to as being corky or as cork taint. But this, and it also the smell of wet dog. Any of you have a pet dog? When you wash your pet dog, his hair smells a particular way. So if it's the smell of wet dog or old newspaper or mustiness, it's actually not caused by the cork itself. It's caused by something called TCA, which is trichloroanisole. And that is actually a substance that is given off by a bacteria that lives naturally in cork. And when this cork is sterilized and it's not sterilized enough, this bacteria will give off this TCA, trichloroanisole. It makes the wine taste corky or musty. But it has nothing to do with the cork. It has to do with this bacteria. That's why you see a lot of screw caps now on wine. It's not because it's cheaper, because it's actually a little more expensive to do a screw cap than it is to do a cheap cork. But a screw cap will not give you this TCA or make the wine cork taint. Smell, we want to refer to the intensity of the smell. Is it a light intensity, or is it medium, or is it a really intense smelling wine? And then we go to our aroma wheel and we want to refer to this, the aroma characteristics. And wine, different kinds of wine, smell and taste like different kinds of things. And that's what we want to try and find. So if you look at your aroma wheel, we have spicy, fruity, earthy, vegetable. And under the fruity category, we have citrus and tropical and tree and dry. And citrus refers to lemons, oranges, grapefruits. So we want to try, and this is the sign of a really good wine taster that has a very sensitive palate. I think we're all different from experiences, but also from genetics. The ability to taste is determined by the number of taste buds you have in your tongue. If you've got way more taste buds than your partner, you can taste better than they can. There's not much you can do if you don't have a lot to do with genetics. But you can train yourself to taste better by just doing it a lot. But it really has a lot to do with genetics. So what we want to do is try and get as specific as possible to those aromas. For example, a hot climate Chardonnay will have the aromas and flavors of mango. So a really good descriptive term would be, I smell slightly overripe Alfonso mango. So very, very specific. And that's what you want to try and do. Okay? All you get is fruity, then fine. But we try to get as specific as possible. It smells of lemon. It smells of fresh lemon juice or lemon zest. They're different. They sort of have a commonality, but it's still different. So we want to try and be as specific as possible. And the aroma wheel will help you to kind of come up, because I have a hard time. Sometimes I'll smell a wine and I'll go, oh my god, that smells like, and I can't quite place it. By going to the aroma wheel, it kind of helps you to come up with whatever that aroma and flavor is. And then we taste the wine, and only when we taste the wine can we figure out sweetness. You can't smell sugar. You can only taste it, tip of your tongue. If the wine tasted sweeter than the grape did, it is a sweet wine. If it tastes less sweet than the grape did, it's a dry wine. And if it tastes as sweet as the grape did, it is a medium. Acidity, the crispness, the refreshingness of the wine, low, medium, or high. Again, that mouth-watering effect. And the tannin, the drying out effect is a low, medium, high. And then the body, light, medium, or full. And then we go to our flavor wheel again, and what are those flavor characteristics? Spicy, of cinnamon, or clove. Floral, of roses, lavender, fruity, bananas, mangoes, apples, vegetal, capsicum, herbs, mint, earthy, clay, soil, composting leaves, And another fault that we want to watch for is a chemical smell. And that chemical smell is burnt matches. If you get burnt matches, it means they use too much sulfur. Because they use a lot of sulfur when they make wine. Because sulfur kills bacteria. So it's cheaper to clean the barrel that you store the wine in, the sulfur kills those bacteria. Better way would be to get make sure you pressure wash it, make sure it's just hygienic. But cheap wine is made with more sulfur because it's cheaper to make by just burning sulfur.
It's more ionized.
It's more
Ionized. Like the ions of the.
ionization has something to do with it, yes. But it's just better to be more hygienic in your machinery and in your wine cellar than to use the sulfur, because the sulfur will, if you use too much of it, you're going to get that smell and taste in the wine, which is not very nice. No one likes to drink burnt matches. And then we want to refer to the length of the wine. Is it short, medium, or long? And length refers to the flavors that you have in your mouth when you have the wine in it, that you can taste. After you swallow the wine, if all those flavors go away, the wine is considered short. If you swallow the wine and you still get this lingering certain flavors, then the wine is considered to have length. Most wine is sort of short and medium. It's only when you get into like ports and sherries and these very concentrated, complex dessert wines and sweet wines that you start to get length that lingers. And then we make a conclusion. Number one, do we like it? Not everyone likes every wine, but there's thousands and thousands of kinds of wine. They all taste different. So there's a very good chance you'll find one that you'll like, if you don't like any of these ones that we're going to try today. And then we want to refer to the quality. Is it great, fantastic, or it's so la la, or you don't like it? What I always do whenever I taste a wine I really like, my first question is, how much does it cost? And if I really liked it and it was only 1,000 rupees, then wow, I like this one. So I'm going to buy 50 cases. I'm going to serve it by the glass in all the restaurants in the hotel. If it's 10,000 rupees, I'll buy 6 bottles. I'll put it on the premium list in the fine dining restaurant. And as a professional, you have to think, can I sell this wine? Can I sell a 10,000 rupee bottle of wine? Because that means I probably got to sell it for 1,000 rupees. So if I'm the manager of the 3-star all-day restaurant in a hotel, am I going to be able to sell 50,000 rupee bottles of wine? No. If I'm the sommelier of a fine dining room on the 6-star cruise ship, 50,000 rupee bottles of wine, all night long, everyone's having this funny quick wedding anniversary. You work on the cruise ship, and you're in the fine dining room, everyone, oh, there's not even wedding anniversary, it's our 50th wedding anniversary, it's our 40th wedding anniversary. And they are spending money. So yes, you can put these wines on your list and sell. Do you need it on your list? Let's say you've got a French restaurant, you have a lot of French wine, and you've got 50 Bordeaux wines on your list, but you only have 2 Burgundy. Do you need any more Bordeaux wines? No, you want to have some more Burgundy. You want to have a balance of wines on your list, a good representation of different countries. Does it work with my menu? I'm an Italian restaurant. Probably going to have a lot of what kind of wine? Italian wines. Yeah. Okay. So that's how to taste wine. So now, are you guys ready to taste wine?
Yes, sir.
Almost. What do we have to do before we can taste wine? Open it and serve it. So we're going to do a little bit of wine service before we get to the opening. And we have 2 kinds of closures. We have a screw cap and we have a corkscrew. There's some things you do the same, and then there's some things that you do different. But we're going to start with the white wine, and we have the service towel here. I'm holding it like this. Why do I have the service towel? Why don't I just go like this? Yeah, well, number one, it's wet, so this helps to dry, because I've had it in an ice bucket. But 2, it is, what is the temperature of the white wine? Chilled, yeah. And your hand is? Warm. So if you put a warm hand on a cold bottle, it's slowly getting slightly warmer. So we want to serve white wine chilled. Yes. Why? Why don't we serve white wine warm, like tea?
Taste people.
It's,
Taste people.
yeah, it tastes different. Yeah. White wine just tastes better when it's chilled. White wine tends to have higher level of acidity. Lemonade has a high level of acidity. Does lemonade taste good warm? No. Lemonade should be chilled. Yeah. So just white wine should be served chilled. Red wine should be served at? No. Because room temperature in my house in July is like 80 degrees. That's not the temperature for wine. So this whole room temperature came from some guy in France in a big castle in May. Because in May, in France, in a castle, it's 60 degrees, which is above the right temperature for serving red wine. But that's not room temperature. So red wine should be, I like it to be cool, 60 degrees. White wine, chilled, 50 degrees, roughly, Fahrenheit. Okay, so we have our wine, and we're going to pretend we're in the restaurant. And we're going to go over to my customer. Monsieur. We have Chateau Gomin, Bordeaux, 2013. Why did I do that?
You are supposed to now before we serve.
Fine.
So that the customer is satisfied.
Knows
You're
what
letting know
what
the
he's
customer
having.
now we serving.
Let's make sure we heard him right. We make sure we have the right wine. Because again, there is a Mouton Cadet. About the same price as this Chateau Gomin. It's made by the same company. Mouton Cadet costs about 1,500 rupees. And then there's a Mouton Rothschild. And the Mouton Rothschild is starting at $1.50. So there's a big difference between 1,500 rupees, which on the list would be 4,000, 5,000 rupees, to Mouton Rothschild, going to be big lakh. So we want to make sure we got the right wine, because if you don't, if you just heard Mouton and you're thinking, ooh, that guy sold the bottle of Chateau Mouton Rothschild, I'm going to make a lot of money on this tip. You get the bottle, you're all excited, you open it up, you pour it, and then you're standing there waiting for him to taste, and he notices that you just opened a bottle of Chateau Mouton. He's going, ooh, buddy, I ordered Mouton Cadet. I didn't order Mouton Rothschild. You know, is your boss going to be very happy? Go to him and you get, look at him, but don't worry, I'll drink it, we won't waste it. You think he's going to let you do that? No. What are you going to be doing most likely the next day? Domino's Pizza, can I take your order? Okay? Because you got fired. You want to make sure you open, because once you open the bottle, even once you take off the capsule, definitely by the time you pull the cork, you can't put everything back. It's wasted. So make sure you have. And why do we say the vintage? Why don't we just, because we Mouton Cadet, Mouton.
It can have a lot of flavors.
Well, it can be different in quality. For example, Chateau Mouton, 1982, fantastic year. We can sell that for 5-6 lakh. But Chateau Mouton, 1981, was a cool vintage. Wasn't as good as the other, and you could maybe sell it for 75,000. Big difference. So you want to make sure you say the vintage, because if your wine list says 82, and you've run out of 82, and you're now serving 81, I'm not going to pay 5 lakh for 81. I'll pay 5 lakh for 82. Ideally, someone else pays for it. Then I get to drink it. But I'm not going to pay 5 lakh for 81. So vintage, very important. Vintage, name, and the kind of wine. Okay? And again, a lot of people say you give it so they check the temperature of the wine. They present it, oh, do you want to check the temperature? What I'm teaching you today is the International Standard of Wine Service. And we don't do that. Because it is our job to make sure that our white wine is served cold and our red wine is cool. Okay? It should be a given in a restaurant when you do that. Okay, so we present. So to come in, 2013, and he goes, yes. So screw cap, we want to just, okay, the romance comes out of wine with screw caps, unfortunately, because you just unscrew it, screw cap in your pocket, okay? Do not put it on the table, and do not, after you pour, put the screw cap back on the top again, okay? Once you open the bottle of wine, you want the wine to breathe, and we're going to learn about why that is important when we taste the wine. So, we do that. I have the service towel like this. I have the label facing out so the customer can see it. And when I pour the wine, I'm serving from the right, the label should always be facing the guest. So I pour, you can see the label. And again, you pour just a little bit, and then you get into presentation mode. So he can see the label. Because remember, we've learned a lot of information is on the label. So by letting him see it, or her seeing it while they're tasting it, they can look at the label and see the different components. And again, during the wine tasting, everyone should look at the wine, smell the wine, but no one has to taste it if they don't want to. For whatever reason, you want to drink wine, don't have to. But you should look and smell. Are you tasting today? Sure. Go for it. Normally they taste it as well. That's right. So you look for the okay? But what happens if they go What do you do? They say, oh, there's something wrong with this wine. What do we do? Do we go, what do you mean something wrong with wine? Nothing wrong with this wine. It's perfectly fine. This guy's crazy. I always get the worst customers in my kitchen. Do we do that?
No.
Oh, we definitely take a pizza order the next day, yeah? What do?
We present an alternative. No,
We first remove that one. Take it away. Okay, he doesn't like it, customer doesn't like it, we take it away. We do want to make sure it's okay, but we don't go over to the bar, still in the visual with the customer. We go to the bartender and we go say, hey, what do you think? And they go, oh, no, this guy's crazy guy. I don't know. We don't do that. Nothing happens in front of our customer. Okay? We go in the back. And either we do it, if we know, or our manager does it, or the sommelier does it, to make sure that the wine is in fact faulty. And again, faults can be that TCA, that the cork taints, musty, or the color has changed, it's gotten cooked, or it's too old, lost all of its flavor. And wine, all wine at some point, will just lose all of its flavor. But if we take it in the back and we smell it and taste it, and this is the way it's supposed to taste, he just doesn't like it. So we don't bring him another bottle of the same. If it is faulty, then yes, we can get another bottle of the same, bring it back to him, and hopefully the one is not cooked or changed or all of that. But if there's nothing wrong with it, then at that point, we would refer them to a different kind of wine. Then maybe you would prefer to try a Burgundy then, instead of the Bordeaux. They don't like the flavors of Cabernet. But most of the time, your guests are giving you an honest answer. There may be someone that's just kind of screwing with you, but we don't ever want to assume that. Okay? We want to assume they're giving us the right answer. No problem, sir. We will change it, or I will recommend it. Okay? Good. Now, he's come to dinner tonight with his girlfriend. They've been together for 2 years. He has brought his parents, his grandparents. She has brought her parents, her grandparents. So we have 4 ladies, 4 men. Who gets poured first? The taster gets to taste the wine first. He is then poured last. Who do we pour after we taste for him?
The lady.
The ladies. Any lady? Does it matter? The grandmother, or the oldest lady, right? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Do you really think that women, again guys, I give this question to you, do you really think that women want to be considered the oldest looking person at the table? No. Trust me guys. Women, especially let's say that his mom and his girlfriend's mom are about the same age. And they know that. The mothers know that. But, one came from work, she's tired, and she was up working hard the night before, and she's kind of stressed out, and she didn't have time to go to the beauty parlor. Where his girlfriend's mother, she doesn't work. She stays at home, she went to get a massage, she got a facial, she's sitting around, she got nothing else to do. So if they know that, then we pour for his mother first. We're basically saying, hey, here's the oldest looking lady here. She's happy